Welcome to the Daily B Show with Matty B, episode 77 with Mr. Craig Sotkovsky. I've got to make sure I say that right. So, guys, Craig I met just recently through our mutual friend, Sam Lewis, and he is a juggernaut. We've had a really amazing conversation this morning. Got to know him. He's got an amazing backstory, author, businessman, public speaker. He was one of the people on ground zero at the September 11 attacks and helping the survivors and the people in the area. And from there, managed to form lung cancer years later from all the soot and the smoke and the chemicals that were just around the city at the time. So that's something he's had to deal with, which is obviously a challenge all in itself. He's a proud father and husband and family man, and he's here to share some pretty epic revelations in his own story, with himself, the world around, and the world within. And I'm looking forward to having a good old chat with Mr. Craig. So let's get him on board and kick off. Hope everyone's having a good day. Thanks for joining us. Look at all you beautiful people jumping on. Hey, buddy.
Hey, Matt, what's up?
A whole lot, man, a whole lot. How are you?
Doing all right. Try to get my hair right.
Yeah, man. Look, he's got a bit poking up at the side there. So, thanks for joining us. I've given you a little bit of an introduction, but for those that don't know you, could you give yourself a little bit of a rile up and an introduction and share with people who you are, where you're at, and what's going on at the moment?
Sure. My name is Craig Sotkovsky. I'm out of Atlanta, Georgia. I am entrepreneur, author, speaker. Sorry, I'm getting my papers together. Getting tangled up. What am I doing? Coaching, mentoring, doing interviews. I got a book out. Everybody pays a vig. Yeah.
What's going on in this book?
The book is about my life. It is basically a book written so people understand that they're not alone going through their journey. I talk about my failures more than my successes because I believe that we learn in our failures more so than our successes. Go from trials and tribulations, man, the worst stuff that humans can do to each other, and just come out the other side with a smile, because that's what I think everybody needs to do, right? You can't live in that. You can't live in that disempowering story, which everybody likes to be comfortable in. And one of the things that I realized is I was really comfortable in that story. I was really comfortable in that woe's me. Why do things happen to me, right? And it wasn't until I just started to be like, why not me? Things happen to everybody. So once I started embracing that and looking at life entirely different, I've had a bunch of ego deaths, more ego deaths than I like to remember. We were chatting about that. I think there's a stigma when it comes to psychedelics, right? Everybody thinks that it's all of this crazy stuff, and it's like, oh, you're a hippie, and it's like, what people are starting to realize, research is starting to show, is that shrooms, microdosing in LSD, DMT, ayahuasca ceremonies, peyote. It's actually one of the quickest ways of getting out of depression. Excuse me. Yeah. Because psychedelics do give you an ego death. It's like a cosmic bitch slap upside the head, right?
Big time.
And I share my story because I feel that people should not be walking around depressed, anxious. There's so much noise now in 2019. All this external stuff out here that people fall into, and they feel that, at least in my experience, people feel that they need to be somebody that they're not, right? Because it's social media. So everybody needs to perform like seals, and it's kind of discouraging for humanity when everybody's acting the same. Everybody's taking those 60 pictures to get that one, right?
Yeah, that's it. And One of the things we spoke about was that, I mean, you've always sort of been a pretty optimistic guy and just had an optimistic outlook on life for the most part, obviously throughout bouts of depression and things that come through. But can you paint a bit of a picture of where you were before your experiences with plant-based medicines and hallucinogenics, and some of the sort of traps that you found yourself in, or the traps that you found your ego really bought into before all that?
Yeah, I was definitely a chest pumper, right? I had to be macho. I had to be the best at everything, right? And actually, looking back, I was kind of shitty at most things. So it was that ego thing. Like, you know, when it comes to the internet, everybody writes their own headlines, right? You have to write copy. I fell into a trap in actually believing my own headlines. And that was something that I see nowadays. People write really good copy and have really good websites and they got really good videos and all this stuff. And then they start to believe their own bullshit. And because it's an act, right? It's a persona, right? Yeah. So what I like to share with people is this is it, me right here. I used to be a pathological liar as businessman. I was, you know, did all of that shit, fell into the trappings of toys, houses, you know, everything you wanted in life. And I was depressed, like really depressed. I had a company that was basically my thesis on my life about financial literacy, right? And I'm a carpenter and a mason by background, and I became a depressed millionaire by fault. We had a couple hurricanes that literally knocked the shit out of our real estate portfolio in Florida. And from that, I learned about banking. From that, I learned about insurance industries. So I mastered all of that stuff, but I didn't master myself. So I found myself on stage, you know, convention centers and big hotels, speaking about financial literacy and all. And I was depressed because it was a subject that I wasn't really, I don't know, wasn't comfortable with, right? But I fell into that trap. I fell into that, you know, I gotta be the best at this, right? So I have to outperform the rest of the SEALs. And
where do you feel that came from?
I'm sorry?
Where do you feel that came from? That desire and need to be the best, and the importance placed on that that financial material world?
Because I was always told that I would never amount to anything because I was never formally educated, right? So it was like I barely got out of school. My best subjects were like history and business law. Loved business law. I just loved the teacher that taught it. And when everybody was going to college, right? This is in 1983. When everybody was going to college, I was going to work. And I ended up at an early age making more money than most parents, just by hustling, you know, construction. And I was mixing cement with guys that graduated from Harvard. In the 80s, it was really bad. It was bad economics. And I was taught by literally the best in the world on how to build things from old masons and carpenters, Greeks and Italians. I grew up in right outside of New York City in a place called Cliffside Park, right by the George Washington Bridge. And we literally had the best real estate in the world 20 minutes away: Alpine, Cresskill, Dumont, New Jersey. I mean, these are the outskirts of New York City, right? So we always wanted to be the best. You were pushed to be the best. And I was mentored from an early age from another guy that actually, I don't know if you've ever heard of Blimpies sub shops. They were like number 2 in the United States back in the day. I was actually mentored by one of the co-founders. So from an early age, we were driving in limousines and Rolls Royces when we were like 13, 14, 15 years old. We were like, oh, this is great. Then I go home. It was like my father was a blue collar guy. He was a teamster. He drove a truck. So it was that. It was that push. You know, you want to be better and all of this other shit. And that's a lie. It's a lie. You got to be better for yourself, right? I always started. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So there would have been a lot of experiences where I'd imagine where life was pushing you to start looking within, that you would have denied along that journey.
Yeah.
Because of the belief in that Can you share some of those if anything comes to mind? Or
So like, one of the things that I share, and I used to be embarrassed about, is I was molested when I was a kid, right? And it wasn't until I really got comfortable with that story, right? Uncomfortably comfortable with that story, that I talk to people now by the hundreds, and you would be surprised like how many people have had incidences like that happen in their life. They just don't want to talk about them. And it wasn't until I embraced that story, or being a drug addict at an early age, because I had 8 knee operations. So I was addicted to painkillers, and then painkillers went to cocaine, and then just, the shit show of what life can throw at you.
how long was that period of your life that you were addicted to the drugs for?
80s and 90s. It beats you up. What's really weird is my last knee operation, right? I wasn't taking any drugs. So I just had cancer surgery October of 2017. They took my mid and lower lung out from just some really exotic stuff. And what happened was I stopped taking the opiates and stuff like 3 weeks after, and I just switched over to CBD oil. And it just made me start thinking about things differently. Like, I can't see myself doing opiates. It's just not me. I could picture myself doing psychedelics, because for me, it's an ego release. It gets rid of depression. They're starting to see this with vets. Guys that are at war. People that have like tragedies and stuff, and they're starting to see how Silicon Valley, right? Silicon Valley was born off of microdosing, and it's just starting to come out that people actually develop a different way of thinking, right? And it's not about, oh, look, I'm high, I'm tripping, I'm doing all this stuff. It's not about that at all, and this is the reason why these human technologies have been given to us by the ancients. I think shamanism will save everybody.
Can we go back to where this all began? Because it's a pretty interesting story about where you went, where you were trained up, and how this sort of entered into your realm.
What, in the Mexico?
Yeah.
So, so it was like 2000. I came up with this company in 2005, 6, 7, right? So I was going on stage, and I just felt like a piece of shit, because everybody's giving me what I want, telling me I'm this awesome dude, and I felt like a piece of shit. And I was not emotionally secure with who I was. I was emotionally immature, right? Because I was never taught anything really. I was always pushing. I knew everything, but I really didn't know a lot. that pushed confidence, right? So what happened was the economy started going down a toilet in 2008. I found myself moving to Mexico and the Yucatan in 2009, January of 2009. And I have a great wife. She was just like, if you need to go find yourself, find yourself.
Beautiful.
And I did. And I got mentored by a Knights Templar, which really blew my mind.
Explain a Knights Templar, because I had no idea what that was.
Templars have a lineage going back to like the original bankers out of the Vatican, right? So, and there's people that you meet along the line that have this lineage. And it just fascinated me, because I was very much into learning about ancient technology, ancient wisdom, old cultures. And I was living in the Mayan Empire, which was amazing to me all on its own.
Cool.
So one of the things that he said was, listen, I'm going to show you all of these things, right? But there's only one thing that's going to get you back to sanity, which is this thing called DMT. And I was like, what is DMT? Like, what? Like, I'm like biting at the bit to change my world, right? And it was weird because I had a friend of mine just randomly was like, hey, have you ever heard of this stuff called DMT? Yeah, I just did. He's like, well, I have a lot of it. And it just appeared, you know?
Explain DMT for those that don't know as well.
Dimethyltryptamine, supposedly, is what the pineal gland, right, the third eye, it's what the pineal gland produces, which gives you vivid dreams, gives you your colors. And what synthesized DMT, everything pretty much has DMT. Anything that's growing pretty much has DMT, but the most concentrated forms are in these roots and leaves. And when you make a brew, you become a different person. So
I think person's the right word.
well, they call it human technology. They call it the spirit molecule, right? They call it the spirit molecule for a reason. And I didn't realize until later on that they used to give this stuff, or still do, to the Jesuits at the Vatican. And I don't know if that's like one of those theories or whatever, but this is what I was told by this dude. And what I found for myself was I was able to deal with all my emotional mess, all of that disempowering stories that I keep telling myself really fast. Like it would just go away. And I felt entirely different. And I was able to conquer myself. I was able to go in, strip all my demons, right? Because we all have demons. People like, oh, I'm not like that. I'm like, you're full of shit. You're human. Everybody's got backstories, right? So I learned how to tap into my story. And when I did, I became me. And that's one of the hardest things that somebody can become is themselves, if that makes any sense.
Well, with the limitations of this language that we're speaking, can you try to explain that in as many words as possible and what that means for you?
We have,
maybe what
for
you
me,
see in others.
for me, what I do with humans, right, is I listen to stories and I study body language. And 70% of communication is nonverbal, right? So you can listen to people's stories and see whether or not they're full of shit, whether or not they're sincere, whether or not, it's just the nonsense of being human. So what I do is, I'm going off on this tangent, I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, that's okay.
It was, for me, it's all about ego. I think for some reason, humans have an ego, and it's really a bad part of what we are as humans, because we have to front, right?
Can you define the ego in your term, in your words?
I call it a block, right? I think for myself, just in my experience, right? An ego is a blocking mechanism for you to go through to advance yourself to your next level, to get rid of your bullshit story that you tell yourself of why your circumstances are going to stop you, right? It's always like, oh, I have a story, so get.
So would you say that the ego isn't this one sort of entity within us, but it's more so explained as like a process? And so for each level that we evolve, there's an ego that's a part of that level that is the block to get to the next stage in that evolution.
And then you have to keep dying. At this next level, you get to this next level, and how am I going to grow? Oh, you know what? I don't know everything. I need to learn more.
I got to die all over again.
And just keep going.
Creation and destruction, birth and rebirth, death and rebirth, like that constant cycle.
Constant. Because if we're not growing, we're dying, right? Yeah. So I am always learning. I'm no longer
if we're dying, we're growing.
Guy. And if we're dying, we're growing. That's the oxymoron, right? And it is, man, because it's like you can get so deep with thoughts, right? Like I show my daughter all the time. I'm like, when you could meditate, or if you could just sit in silence, right?
Yeah.
In the morning, your day can turn out entirely different than if you just woke up and just walked into your day for 10 minutes. For 10 minutes, right? Um, for me on my journey, right, I'm here to just kick ass. I'm here to tell my story. I'm here to simply encourage people to show up for their
Yeah.
lives. Because people, they want to hide behind this facade, right? The ego is the mask. So once you take that mask off and you reveal yourself, man, you look in the mirror and you're like, hey, you know what? I am pretty badass, right? I am a pretty amazing dude. I am pretty cool. Instead of all of this, oh, I'm this part of my story or I'm that part of my story. It's like, no, the whole thing is your story, right? So be explosive in your world if that's what you want to be, because success is defined so many different things. I find myself more successful now than I ever was simply because I don't have to bullshit myself no more. I don't have to impress you. You know, I don't have to impress your audience. Because whether somebody is going to say something about me or think something about me, it's none of my business because it's based off of their experience, you know.
Yep.
And that for me is an ego death, because I am just going to go through life. I'm not going to be this egotistical asshole and be like, oh, I know everything and all, because nobody does. Nobody has the perfect life that everybody's trying to portray on Instagram, right?
So let's tap into that a bit, where the just being in the moment, being in the here and the now, and that true release of not giving a fuck what others are thinking, others' opinions are none of our business, and that it is just a projection of their own experiences. Like, walk me through that, your first death to get to that point, and what that really means, and if you can elaborate on that for people as well that may not quite be there yet.
Okay, so everybody's at whatever level that they're at now, right? Yeah. So for me, because I coach or consult or whatever word you want to use, right? I listen to people's stories, the worst stories that people can possibly muster for themselves. And I take that and I explain to them, for me, to make me happy, okay? Forget about back there. I have to go from this point forward. So whatever this point is. So I was doing like these little mini seminars when I was getting lung surgery for the nurses and doctors, and they're like, how the fuck can you come in here and they're gonna rip your fucking mid and lower lung out, and you're coming in here like you're getting your teeth brushed, you know, like you're gonna extract a tooth. It's like, how does that even work? And it was like, for me, how my process is, I know what shit is, right? So I look at everything as beauty. I look at everything as smiling. I look at everything. In September, I had a really good friend of mine get shot and killed in his kitchen. I mean, it was just a complete nightmare. And for me, it made me realize I love this dude so much, but you know what? He was gone. He was gone. And what was good about that situation? And I think people have to look at all the tragedies in life and look at this something that's good about every situation. And that's what I like to exploit more than anything, is the good situations than the bad. And I think that is part of my ego death. I really do, because I'm empathetic. My empathy is my superpower.
So one of the things that I've found myself sort of maybe tiptoeing around or just still figuring out is how to hold that space within myself and be true to myself, yet be empathetic in front of people that aren't at that level yet, because people expect the tears and the pats on the back and the despair and the depression from certain experiences. And if they don't see that in others, it sort of comes across as disrespectful or lacking empathy or lacking care, when really it is just like that equilibrated view of the whole experience and that balanced understanding and seeing the beauty in the whole bigger picture. But do you recognize at the start of this this new rebirth into this mindset, the challenge of communicating with others that are still not there yet?
No, I'll tell you why. I'm the type of guy that I'm not going to lie to you, okay? Because I think
Yeah.
once you start lying to people, you could pick up on people's bullshit, right? So what I'm going to do with clients, friends, whatever, is I'm going to rip those fucking Band-Aids that you have all over you, and I'm going to open up your wounds, right? Because it's the only way that you're going to deal with your shit. You can bury shit,
Yeah.
whatever you want for as long as you want, but it will creep up if you haven't dealt with it. Just in my experience, right? So
Yeah.
I'm not for everybody. I'm like this fucking mental extremist. I know that, okay? And you know, people have asked me like, what's the hardest job I think people can have? And I was like, the hardest job is being my wife and my daughter, because I am this mental case, right? But I'm a mental case with love and gratitude and understand abundance, because if I'm not pushing you off the fucking cliff mentally, right? I'm not doing my human job. And people find that offensive. People find, and it's like, you know what? If you find it offensive, you're not there yet. Keep moving.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes in this life, we got to walk over the bodies, because you're not going to save everybody. And unfortunately, there are people like, I won't just work with the masses. I can't.
Yeah.
For the simple reason that I'm not going to waste my time. That's the greatest commodity that I have, right? And one of these gurus, Jim Rohn, a long time ago, I heard him say, if you educate an idiot, you're going to end up with an educated idiot. And I think that's true. If people if people aren't ready to meet themselves, right? Because you have to really deep dive into your mindset to find out what your problems are, right? And that's hard. That's hard.
And then face them when you find them. Honestly, it's brutal.
Honestly, face them. It is
brutal than any physical challenge.
But then what happens is you cross over into a different world for yourself, because nobody can hold anything against you, especially yourself. And that's what I try, or I believe I get across to other people, is if you're not willing to look at yourself and seriously break your shit down so you understand who you are. If people understood their human nature, just who they were as humans, they would never have a self-doubt, disempowering thought ever again. I mean, because you have to think about it logically, right? I listen to people, oh, you know, that guy's 1 in a million. I'm like, that's fucking mediocre thinking at best, because there's 7.5 people on planet Earth. So if you think you're 1 in a million, you need a different mindset, first and foremost. You know, you beat a 400 sperm cell to become uniquely you. Get on the fucking program. Show up for your life, because people aren't, right? They want to carbon copy everybody else, when really the world wants your uniqueness. And that's what it comes down to. And this is why people are so miserable, because they're comparing themselves to other people. How can I compare myself to you or your friends or your auntie or whatever? I'm not them. So it's like, I want to learn from everybody. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to learn. Because as we were talking before, I was like, I'm never incarnating back to this fucking mental institution ever again. This volcanic meatball that we're on right now, this place is crazy. Look at the shit that we do to each other. Seriously. Seriously. It is nuts. The human conditioning is insane to me. It really is.
Yeah, it's full on. It was Gary Vaynerchuk who had his video speaking that the mathematicians put their heads together and figured out there's like a 1 in 400 trillion chance of even being alive. Yeah. But even after doing some DMT and some different experiences, you recognize what infinite is and what that word tangibly actually means, and really where every single moment's a 1 in infinite chance of even being here.
Now think about your heart. Think about your heart, right? It beats by itself.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking, oh, my heart has to beat. So I mean, there's something else other than myself, right? That's controlling this shit. I don't know what you call it, God, you call it the universe, you call it whatever you want. I just call it me, right? Because I haven't seen anything else. Well, I told you about the Malumba Estate telling me about my life for 5 years, but I mean,
Don't just skim over that, by the way. You brought that up. Let's go there. Tell that story.
So I was having one of those moments, right? Did a bunch of DMT and ayahuasca and just went. And I ended up in my backyard in Mexico, and I was talking to a plumeria tree, and the plumeria tree laid out my life for the next 5 years. And it was because it's my own vivid hallucinations, right? So I actually, I guess, told myself whatever the universe was telling me actually manifested. And it showed me so much, right? That the guy that I was just talking to you about that got killed, I went on a journey with him, and it was insane. The last journey I went on was completely insane because it was like a fucking circus. It was like, no, this is what your life is going to be like now. Boom! It's like, go. Just go do it, man. Just whatever you want, just go take it. It's right there for you. Just go grab it. And that's what I'm doing, right? Because there's nobody that can stop me except for myself.
Yeah.
And in 2019, the way everybody is batshit crazy, there's so much noise. Whatever it is that you're going to concentrate on, just go take it. Nobody's paying attention, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's paying attention. Everybody's got their own shit that they're going through, and they're trying to do this, and they're scamming that. And just go in and take it. Whatever it is that you want in this world, visually see it, write out a little map for yourself, and just go take it. And people are like, oh, but you don't know my story. I don't give a fuck about your story. Nobody cares about your feelings, man. Just go do it. That's it. Plain and simple. That's it. It's like mic drop, man. It's like nobody fucking cares. Just go do it, right? But then you have these people like myself that I do. I honestly do. When I ask you, how was your day, right? I fucking want to know. But that being said, I've learned from the masters, okay, that I don't want to know about your whole day. I want to know about the best part of your day. So what that does is that eliminates all your bullshit about your dog, your cat, your husband, your wife, all of that shit. And you're going to tell me what's the best part of your day, which means I'm going to give you a disruptive pattern like that. And you're going to tell me, and you're going to feel good about telling me about the best part of your day. So we just eliminated all of this bullshit. And I think once people understand that, people get along a lot better.
What's been the best part of your day today?
What's the best part of my day?
Yeah.
Hanging out with my daughter. She's homeschooled. Yeah. Listening to her and my wife bicker because they're not, it's not me involved. Right. My daughter will be like, oh, mommy said this. Well, suck it up because mommy didn't say that to me.
I love it. So, brother, share with me this journey of the cancer journey that you went on, where it came from, because this is a part of the noise that people cling to, the news stories that get blasted all over the place. But just briefly about the actual how it came about, but then I want to get into, like you said, how you keep that smile on your face, like the people were asking in the hospital.
So like I grew up with a mom, right, that was sick ever since I was a little kid. Like from my I'd say my early teens to like when I was 30. And I watched her, right? I watched her take shitload of drugs, get all of these tests done, ended up with like all kinds of surgeries and all of this shit. And she used to smile all the time, right? And I found out, like, I've had 8 knee operations. I almost lost my arm in a construction accident. I've broken bones, like all the shit that you go through in construction. And I found out I had cancer after being sick for like 5 years. Nobody knew what was wrong with me. I just knew there was something definitely wrong because I had so much pain. And I'd go to the hospital and I'd have pneumonia and pleurisy almost every few months for like 4 or 5 years. And what pleurisy does is it's liquid around the lungs and it constricts your lungs. It's painful as all get out. And every time I would go to the doctor, they'd be like, you just got pneumonia again. You got pneumonia. And it wasn't until I think it was 2017, I got really sick. And went to this one doctor, and he was just like, you know, he's reading all my charts and stuff, and he's like, hey, you know, I keep seeing this pattern all the time, right? Have you ever been exposed to anything like exotic, like anything crazy? And I was like, I was a volunteer responder at Ground Zero, 9/11, and his face just like lit up, and he put me through a whole bunch of different tests, and they found out that I had a carcinoid tumor between my my upper lung and my mid lung. And for my 52nd birthday, I was being wheeled in for my first procedure.
Full on.
I went to my, you know, I went to the doctor, and I just needed to, like, I've always been into meditation. I've always been into, like, you know, fucking with my head, right? But not at the level that psychedelics does. So when I went into the doctor's office and I sat down with him, he's my surgeon, and I just needed to ask him, like, is this shit gonna hurt? Because the worst thing you could do is Google this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to Google anything when it comes to medical stuff, right? Because you're just dead in 20 minutes anyway. And he just looked at me. He just looked at me, and he had this smile on his face, like this smirk, right? So I just asked him, I was like, is this shit gonna hurt? And he just smirked, and he was like, yeah, a lot. And I was just like, fuck, okay. That's all I needed. That's all I needed to know, though. Okay, like, this is gonna fucking hurt. Okay, so what do I do? So I just started really meditating. I started really tapping into the things that I have learned, right? And then I was just like, okay, well, if they're gonna rip this shit out, what's my prognosis? And they were like, well, we're gonna rip this stuff out and you'll be good. Okay, so if that's the case, it is like going to get your teeth done. Rip the shit out.
Rip it out.
Now, in hindsight, it's a year and a half later, right? I have neuropathy. I have rib pain, like, you know, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And now mentally, I'm on point 24/7. I have to be. I do walking meditations, sitting meditations. I'm meditating now as I'm speaking to you, just because I have to deflect the fucking physical pain, right? And you can do that here. You really can. And it sounds like bullshit, but if you do something 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you're on, and do you get burnt out? Yeah, for about 20 minutes, and then you start all over again. Because this is life. This is the life that I have. My life is entirely different than everybody else's. That being said, my life is entirely different than that guy that's going through chemo right now, or that person that just lost their legs to diabetes, or, you know what I mean? Everybody's got a fucking story. So I believe that I'm here to just push people mentally. Just keep going. Whatever it is, just keep going. And I think that's...
What's the difference? What's the difference between having that strong mental attitude and the people that you see around you that don't?
I try not to have people around me that don't. The strongest person I've ever met in my life is my wife. Hands down. And she's like 5 foot. And she's phenomenal. Like, mentally, that girl is just one of the toughest fucking people on earth. Really. And then I see my daughter, she's getting it too, because my wife's tough. I'm a maniac. And my daughter, I mean, she's influenced by us because we chose to actually raise her.
True.
You know, it works for us. It doesn't work for everybody. You know? I showed you my house. That's our shit. That's my that's what it is, 24/7. It's writing stuff, it's listening to stuff, it's filming things. It's just who we are. You know, I want to get to my next level. What is that? Man, I have no idea, but it scares the shit out of me every day.
So what is the challenge or the ego that you recognize at this level where you're at that you're facing to let go of and kill off? That
I wasn't good enough. That I wasn't like people are like, hey, you know what? You're at like this level, and I'm like, really?
Yeah,
I'm just a knucklehead from New Jersey. But then I start to see that it's not levels, it's new stories. right? So my next chapter is this guy that is at this peak performance in his life, right? I'm going to perform. You know, they say 85% of life is just showing up. The other 15% is how you act. I'm going for an Academy Award now. I'm showing up, you know? I'm just going to be me, you know, unapologetically. Unapologetically, man.
I love it. So going back to the story after the doc said this is going to hurt.
It did fucking hurt, right? So like you can't make this shit up, right? So I was on a table for 9 hours. I was on an operating table for 9 hours, right? So I was laid out. I was laid out on this table for 9 hours. It took me 7 months to get rid of the palsy that was in my arm because my arm was laid out in a way where it was just sitting on a nerve. So for 7 months after, I was trying to pick up my arm and the shit just wouldn't work. It was the craziest, one of the craziest things. My ribs, like the physical pain was just completely ridiculous. Still is to this day, but it's something to push off. Me now.
I saw the pictures of the ribs and the keyholes that didn't look like keyholes. They looked like
it's like you went through with fucking swords, man. If you Google VAT surgery, right? It's a VAT surgery, VAT, and it was like I don't know. It's hard to explain. It really is. I love Aikido. I'm an Aikidoist, and I haven't been doing Aikido in 5 years because I was sick. I didn't know I was sick, which was even crazier. So I mind fucked myself, right? Because I had all of these things that I was going to get. I was getting older, and this is what it feels like. And I'd be telling my wife, "You got all this crazy pain. It's nuts. It really is." I don't know if I answered your question because I just went on another fucking rant.
That's all right. Just trust that what's coming up is meant to come up.
I just think that if people actually like deep dived into their shit, right, tapped into who they are more so than what society says they are, I think people would just have a much better life for themselves. And I think that's the ego death.
Yeah, I think one of the places I see people struggle is because we get our definitions of life and of our language from society, from our parents, from our education.
Sure.
And so it's almost like learning another language and redefining your entire reality.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that because it is another language. Living your life with passion, right? It's going to sound really cliche-ish, but just being passionate about living, right? No, all of these people, all these people are just existing, right? Nobody is living their life. They're living a lie that they tell themselves of why they can't be somebody else, right? But here's the thing. It's not you're faking it until you make it. You've always had it in you. So once you tap into yourself, lives change, man. I've seen families change. It's like, I don't have to sell shit. This shit sells itself. You know, show up for your life. Be that amazing human that you are. And that's it. There is no like self-doubt. There is no like, no, fuck it. Show up. Take over. That's what it's all about. And it scares people because like, oh, you're crazy. Yeah. You can't be like that. No, you can't be like that. I can be like whatever the fuck I want. And that's I think that's the key. I really do. I think that's the formula. Keurig Ashley talks about the formula all the time. It is the formula. It's not mine. It's just what it is. Show up. You know? Actually be that person that you want to be. If you want to be a multimillionaire, be that shit now. Right? Actually live that life. Because it's all about a lifestyle. And that's what people don't really get. I listen to people all the time. I want to be a millionaire. And it's like, do you want the responsibility of that? Or do you want the lifestyle of? Because if you want the lifestyle of, anybody can have it. Because it's time. Yeah. It's about, for me, my life is all about time. It's the greatest commodity I'm never getting back. So I have to give you my time that I'm not going to get back. So I have to add value to what this conversation is all about. Or else you ain't gonna call me back. You know, you'd be like, fuck him, he's done. And that's what it's about. I think people are trading their time and thinking that that's currency, and it's not. It's actually money, because that's the store of value. You know, this relationship. I talk about the difference between currency and money all the time. People are chasing the wrong things. You know, we're humans. We love shiny shit. I've had all the shiny shit. I don't need the shiny shit. The shiny shit means that I have a glare somewhere. You know, I want to just be me. I want to have all the time in the world to raise my kid, hang out with my wife until my wife gets pissed off that I've been with her too long. Then she sends me away someplace.
I love it. It's a good goal.
I think so. I think when you show up for your life, your whole world will change. You know, people want to change the world. Go ahead. Sorry.
Actually, finish that thought. People want to change the world,
and they have to change themselves first. Then their external world will change.
Well, that's the symptom, isn't it? Like, you can't. Changing yourself is changing the world.
Exactly, it's changing your world and the way you view things. Like I used to be so fucking cynical. I like the fucking government, the banks, all this shit. Okay, well, I already know that's a con job, right? I already know, so I don't even participate in that shit. Like, why would people participate in shit that they don't like? That drives me crazy more than anything. Like, you listen to people and you listen to their stories, and you're like, it's always self-defeating. It's this non-self-love that we have for ourselves. We have a self-love issue. It's kind of like, oh, I can't, because I was a little kid and something happened, so I'm a fuck up. It's like, no, you were a little kid, you're a fuck up now because you haven't changed your mindset about what happened a long time ago. Listen, you know, people in their 40s and 50s are still complaining about their mother and father. Get over it.
So true. Can you marry up for me where that the crossover between just being yourself, being in this moment, and future pacing, setting goals, and actually journeying on a path with a vision of the future?
Okay, I've mastered my rituals to where I wake up and I'm just glad I did, right? I write things down now because I know I'll forget them. So I write my goals out, realistic goals. I'm not like, I want to make $20 million by fucking April 15th. Yeah, it's nice and everything. That's called hitting the lotto. And if you have the lotto mentality, you're never going to work at yourself, right? You're always going to wish upon things. For me, you know, just creating the strategy, right? I think most people are playing checkers when you should be playing chess, because life is a masterful game. And once you master yourself, game's pretty easy. You know, and for me, that's what it is. It's about learning every day. How do I master myself and keep moving forward? And then by doing that, bringing people with me. And that's what I think my contribution to the world is because I'm changing my world every day, right? So my world is changing. And my external world is changing because the beauty of my inside world has changed. Hope that explains that.
Yeah, it does. I think the more that you do recognize and tap into your own being, you do create a bigger container within yourself to support and create more, support more. And so again, the deeper you dive within yourself, the more layers you strip back, the more there is to contribute to the world around and the people around.
Absolutely. You know, that's my core philosophy. Just change.
Just change. Okay. So what do you believe above all else?
What do I believe? Nobody laughs or cries in a different language.
Nobody laughs or cries in a different language. That's awesome.
That's it, man. Everybody's going through some shit now. Like, realistically.
Yeah.
We're all going through something. Look at the stupid shit that we do to each other. I mean, it's ridiculous. We're all fucking humans.
Yeah.
Well, some people, they act like they're not, but
What's one of your favorite ways of expressing yourself?
One of my favorite ways of expressing myself, just being batshit crazy. Like so one of my favorite things when I'm speaking with somebody and I know is really religious, right? I'll always ask them if they believe in aliens. And you'll watch their face and it's like, no, aliens, that's crazy shit, you know? You can't see that. I'll be like, oh, okay, so are you a religious person? And they're like, oh yeah. I was like, you see the irony in that? Like, what do you see? Who do you see? Like, what are you expressing exactly? You know, I think we're all aliens, man. I think we're light seeking a human experience, and it scares people. Life scares people. It really does. I know. It used to scare me. Used to scare the shit out of me.
Hell yeah.
Now the things that I manifest scare me more. So I'm like, whoa, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun.
Yeah, they come out of the blue, and it happens so much though that you'd think that you'd get used to it, and every time it happens, it surprises you. But it's like, oh no, well, I'm sort of used to it now. But this was just a bit of a surprise, and then you go along, and then it happens again, jumps out from behind a tree.
And here's the thing: shit can be gone like that.
Yeah.
In an instant. Yeah. And I think that is one of the things that people take for granted is their life, because it'd be gone in an instant. Your spouse could be gone in an instant. Your kids could be gone in an instant. It happens every day. So just enjoy it. Enjoy the journey. Enjoy the process. Enjoy that bridge from this point to this point. Enjoy that process. I hated the fucking process I kick and scream all the time.
Yeah.
Now I understand who I am. I understand what my triggers are, right? And if I see any kind of disempowering thought, I'm just like, fuck, go away.
Yeah. Literally.
Yeah, literally, just fucking go away. Get out of here. I'm a rock star.
So, and that's thoughts. All thoughts are. They're just traffic on the freeway, just flying by. We can choose to focus on whichever one we want.
What exit non-ramp do you want? That's it.
Yeah.
You know? But people don't want, people always in the rear view mirror, man. They're always talking about the past. It's always back there.
Yeah, man. I asked you earlier on, like you described yourself as a depressed millionaire. And then how do you describe yourself now?
I'm a fucking rock star. I'm a rock star. I'm just like, I just show up now, right? Like my whole thing is I used to show up. I tell people all the time, wherever I used to go to a different geographical location, I would show up. Now, I show up, not with the fucking luggage. Yeah. That shit doesn't even exist anymore. And that's like another part of my superpower. Just show up. I just walk in and just take over, because that's my personality. And I'm not trying to be an asshole about it, but if you're not going to, fuck it, I am. And I think that's how people get over their shit. Just walk in, take it. And if you're not going to take it, somebody else will. And that's just the way life is.
So would you say you run purely on intuition and instinct within the moment?
I would say off of experience. Like, I've put myself in so many experiences that my intuition, right? People's body language. If you see somebody walking down the street, hypothetically, with a fucking gas can filled, and they're spraying that shit out, and they're walking with a cigarette, eventually they're going to blow up, right? It's the easiest way that I can express that. People are walking around with these gas cans, smoking cigarettes, and they're fucking blowing up their lives over what other people are thinking about them. You know, just be you, man. That's my biggest message. Be you.
Yeah.
You know, whatever that shit is. If you think you're crazy, okay. Everybody's got some kind of bullshit in their head. Nobody, you know, we're all these unique creatures based off our experience. Just experience life. I mean, how many people do you know that are just paralyzed with fear over everything? They're just paralyzed all the time. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't. You know what? You're right. If you think you can't, you're absolutely right. You can't. No?
Yeah.
But what if you did? What if you did?
One of the conversations that's been coming up lately and that I've had a few times recently is that people, when we think of the future, a lot of the people in that state of fear and anxiety are thinking about the negatives of the future or potential things that will mess up or why things won't work, or trying to think realistically. But essentially, it's all crazy thought anyway, because there's no such thing as a future. It's not there until
It's a theory.
this is all we've got right here. So you might as well think crazy big and think crazy good, because what the fuck else are you going to do? Just think mediocre or think negatively. It's a bit of a no-brainer when you start tapping into that and recognizing how much of an illusion and how non-existent the future really is.
It's a theory.
And when we're,
I mean, legit.
Yeah.
It's just a theory, right? So, okay, so let me ask you a question, right? I was having this conversation with a buddy of mine the other day. Is there something called time?
Well, there's something that people call time.
Okay, so if there's something called time, right? What time is it by you?
Well, it depends how big the magnifying glass is on that second hand that I can get right in, because it isn't there.
And so,
Ever-changing.
so it's ever changing, right? So if you're thinking about something in the past, right? Are you really thinking about the past, or are you having a thought now about something that happened before?
I'm thinking about the past and thinking about something now.
Because aren't you thinking about it now in the present?
Well, yeah.
Okay, but okay. So let's say you had a really traumatic experience back then, right? And then you got new skills. You got new skills and tools to look at life differently. Would you look at that story the same way back then? Now? No.
No.
So anybody can change.
You completely transform an experience.
Exactly. Completely transform that experience. So you could actually have really shitty experiences come out to benefit you. Yin and yang.
Well, that's where we are bipolar by nature, isn't it? Like we go through experiencing things with this lopsided, good or bad, up or down. But then where we were saying earlier on about how we can view situations in that sort of equilibrated state where we do see the balance of the up and the down, the yin and the yang. And it isn't that it's traumatic, but it's one in an infinite, which is actually fucking beautiful. Even the most desperate of despair, seemingly, that people go through, which is a whole nother level to get to.
It's a whole nother level, a whole nother story.
Yeah.
Just keep changing the pages. You know, just keep changing.
Which is batshit crazy until you're there.
Batshit crazy is the best place to be. People walk out of your people get out of your way. You know?
Yeah, they do.
I'm one of those.
Yeah,
I'm one of those guys that gets introduced with a fucking warning. It's like, you know,
yeah.
You're gonna meet this guy, but you never know what's gonna come out of his mouth. That's pretty cool. I like that.
Well, I think it's either they get the fuck out of the way really quick, or they latch on really tight.
That's when you know they're crazy too.
Yeah,
that's the circle. That's the circle I want to be. Exactly. This is my people. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, man. So you've delivered a lot of messages. You've delivered a lot of value, and thank you so much for joining me. And I'm really looking forward to catching up with you and going on a journey with you when I get to Atlanta. And joining
thanks for
the
opportunity.
Oh, bro, my absolute pleasure. So the Hippiepreneur Businesses with Soul Summit is what I'll be traveling around the States with throughout the year.
The Hippiepreneur?
And, yeah, that's the one. So just collaborating, man, with like-minded people, the latchers, the ones that are here for the ride and equally as batshit crazy. So if there's anyone watching or anyone that you know or anyone that comes on the replay that is knows potential speakers that might want to join us on the journey, businesses that might want to advertise, we're going to have billboards on the side of our camper vans traveling around, mobile billboards. So any advertisers interested in that, reach out. Or anyone that wants to volunteer or join us at the events, reach out as well. But that's just sort of in the back end work at the moment, just planting a few seeds. But man, definitely
Nice.
cruise down and love to join you on stage. And yeah, looking forward to seeing where this is going. But is there something that is at the top of your mind that you'd like to deliver, or just last sort of word of wisdom or passing message for the audience that you'd like to pass on?
Just be yourself, man. Everybody else is full of shit. That's it.
Daily be.
The daily
Just
be. Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, just be. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah,
Can I tell you what it stands for?
I appreciate it. Huh.
Believe in yourself, express yourself authentically, and evolve consciously.
There you go. The daily be.
That's the formula.
I like that. It is the
Yeah,
formula. It really is. It's not mine. It's not yours. It's just the formula.
That's it. Thanks for joining, guys. Love it. I had a lot of fun, man.
Greatly
Thank you so much.
appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thanks again.
Have a great day. We'll catch everyone tomorrow.